Hi guys.
Hello everyone.
Hello.
This is Khushbu.
This is Keshav.
I hope that you all know us by now. We are Dr.
Two medical students currently studying in Ukraine. Yes.
And running this vlog, Dr. Behind the Scenes.
So this time we are going live with
Road to UK.
Road to UK. Yes. So this live will mostly cover all the paths of pathway to UK. It includes all the ways and all the resources we can use.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, doctors.
How y'all doing?
How are you?
Good, how are you? I'm just gonna adjust.
We are also good. We are also good. It's so nice to have you on board and taking out time to talk to your juniors who are aspiring to come to UK. And this is Keshav and I'm Khushbu.
My name is Ibrahim.
And I'm a breeze. No, the pleasure is all ours. Thank you for at least setting up this opportunity for us to speak about everything that related to working in the United Kingdom. So we both are internal medicine trainees right now, and we've only been in the United Kingdom 2 years.
2 years.
And a lot of people get surprised that, how can you get into training so quickly? But I think that's what it is. They don't actually know how easy it really is to do all of that stuff. So we're here for about.
A lot of questions will be there asking you how difficult it is, but you have clearly mentioned in the first go that it is easy.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, everything takes a little bit of effort, but it's not something that is impossible, especially if you're an international graduate.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of stigma around, misinformation, I would say. There's a lot of misinformation around that people think that, oh, this is not possible, that is not possible. If I don't have this, then I'll not be able to do that. I think, and all this misinformation are basically hearsay. And by Road to UK, we try to help international graduates to debunk those myths and basically give them the correct information from our own experience of the journey and own experience of working in the NHS.
So let's start with the questions. We have a lot of questions for you.
The first question I want to ask you is, why did you choose UK over US?
Oh, sure.
This is also no.
I think Ibris is the best suited person to answer this question.
So I am an American, and obviously it would make more sense for me to go back home than it would be to go somewhere else. But when I finished medical school, I did actually start in the States, and the healthcare system there was extremely depressing because you have to have insurance in the United States if you want to get healthcare. And that alone, forget the fact that people have to pay so much for healthcare. I shadowed with my cousins who were already in residencies or some of my other family members who were already working, and the hours were terrible. They were working minimum 80 hours a week. They got maybe 1 day off in a week. They didn't have a lot of vacation days, study leave budgets, or anything like that. And it didn't make sense to me, for them to be working so hard for basically as much as we would be making in the UK, and we work considerably less hours. We have a lot of, more structured training in the sense of days that we get off. It's not fixed annual leave, so that's something that is illegal in the United Kingdom. They can't tell you when to take your days off. You can choose when you get your days off if you ask in the appropriate ways. But in the US, they basically, at the very beginning of the year, they give you a list and they say, these are the blocks that you can take. You can take 2 blocks off, so that means basically you get 4 weeks in 1 year. But if somebody takes that block before you, that's it.
Okay.
So it was really all down to that. I mean, it's a balance of everything. You want to have a good work environment. You want to have a good life outside of work. You want to be able to socialize. And of course, you want to make money, because I know that does come down to a lot of that. It doesn't make sense to make money without it.
And I think there's a growing... Yeah, please, go on.
But of course, US has, they pay a lot than UK. There are a lot of myths or a lot of, some hush-hush that's saying UK doctors don't earn as much as other countries. Is that so?
So the way the US pay works for doctors is it doesn't work in the sense that every person at that same level gets the same pay. So if you're PGY1, if you're what they call internship, which isn't a proper internship. So if you're at that level, it depends on where you're working, and they will decide what your pay is. So if you're working in New York City, you might get different pay than somebody who's in Los Angeles, and that comes into a lot of factors: how much the hospital wants to pay, what they feel is an appropriate pay for that area you're working in, And then you have to take into consideration that that pay, it may sound like a lot, but you're not thinking about, well, what's the cost of living? For instance, in some places you might get, let's say in one big city, you'll get $50,000 a year, $50,000 a year. You're like, oh, that's fantastic. And another city, they'll only, let's say, give you $45,000 a year. And you'll be like, well, why will I ever go to that other city that's only giving me 45,000? But you've not thought about that the place that's giving you 50,000 a year, the cost of living is maybe twice as much as the other place. On top of that, the hours really make a big difference. When you say, okay, yes, you're getting 50,000 a year, but if you're working 80 hours a week, how much does that actually come down to? And then people forget about some, besides the federal tax, there's income tax, and some states have state tax. So they'll have local tax along with the federal tax and the income tax. So you think about that, how much you actually take home versus, I'm not saying the UK doesn't have taxes, the UK does have taxes.
Yes.
A lot of that goes towards you not having to pay for health insurance. But the difference is in the United Kingdom, it's set by the deanery, the individuals who actually put aside the training. So if I'm working in, England, in the south somewhere, and somebody's working in the north of England, we're getting the same pay if we're at the same level.
So there's a national pay scale,
there's a national
which
pay
does
scale.
not exist in the US.
Yes, exactly.
So whenever you hear from a doctor, okay, I make this amount of money from a US doctor, that doesn't mean that you will make the same. And there's a lot of things to consider if a person has, experience, or they can prove to the residency program that I am I'm entitled to get this amount of pay. Their pay can increase. So it's not a case for everybody that they will make millions of dollars in the US.
I think a lot of things that also people forget is that what they usually see, the UK pay scale is the basic pay, which means that's that pay scale that Ibrahim's talking about. On top of the basic pay, we don't only do basic hours, we do night shifts, we do on-call shifts, we do out-of-hour shifts, unsocial hours, and you get extra money on top of that.
And that's never actually publicized anywhere because that differs from person to person.
Yeah.
Like in one hospital, maybe I'm working night shifts 1 to 8. That means in every 8 weeks, I have night shift. Or maybe in some other hospital, I'll have to work in 1 to 4 because they have less doctors. And that's why I'm working more frequently. So the hospital that I'll be working more frequently will have to pay me more for the on-call shifts. So the pay actually that we get to see whenever you Google search, how much an FY2 doctor makes, you can actually see the basic pay scale that has been publicized and agreed by the national and BMA and all the other stuff. But on top of that, there is actually substantial 40 to 50% increase of that pay. And I don't know why nobody talks about that.
I think it's too varied. It's too varied.
And at the same time, consultants in the UK also has options to do private work, which is not that massively stated or documented everywhere. I mean, not all the consultants do it, but there is option to do it as well. So as a consultant, you can choose to 100% work for the NHS, or maybe 80% for the NHS and 20% for a private company. Or sometimes the consultants, if they're too successful, they go 100% private. If they have that kind of a pool for patients and all that stuff.
Okay. So do you want to ask the second question?
Okay. So what I want to ask is, there are many routes to go to UK, right? It can be PLAB, it can be MRCS. So which route you choose?
We both took PLAB route because we thought that we came to the UK just finishing internship back home. There was, if we had to prepare for a postgraduate exam and all the other stuff, we'd have to invest more time and then come, because with the postgraduate exams, you have to finish all parts and finish, if you want to do MRCS, you have to finish both parts. If you want to do MRCP, you have to finish all 3 parts. And that will take a lot of time and effort to finish those. So our target was to come to this country as soon as possible, and then gain experience and learning points and do the post-graduation exams as in we do training. So we took PLAB route because PLAB is by far, I think, the quickest and I think less expensive than the other ones as well. So yeah, we both took PLAB exams. And I suggest if you are if you intend on making a career in the long run, making a career in the UK for the long run, then taking PLAB exams would be the best option for early in the career.
Okay, great. So I do want to ask you that, for example, somebody has given the medical licensing exam and they have not been able to clear it. They waited for few months, and that is a break that we will consider. In They wanted to try, but they could not get in their home country. So when is the should now they think of going to UK? I mean, trying for PLAB and going to UK.
So unlike the US, where clinical gaps are basically impossible to overcome and then you will not get into residency, it's not like that in the United Kingdom. Any gaps or anything that happens in your life, they just want to know what you were doing. So when you apply for GMC registration, they ask from this date backwards, tell us what you were doing for whatever duration period of time.
5 years.
5 years time. Yeah. So if you were in medical school, let's say for 3 of those years, you'll say I was in medical school for 3 years. And then for 2 years after medical school, I attempted these exams, but I couldn't get in these exams. Or I had a family, or I got married, or I traveled the world. Somebody we actually know was actually just traveling for 1 year. They didn't ask for any proof. They said, that's fine.
Yeah.
We just want to know what you were doing.
So,
And it's just, they just want to see that. I mean, the people who have long clinical gaps, for instance, my old college roommate, she had a 10-year clinical gap before she actually got GMC registration. And it was just a series of unfortunate events, basically, because she had no clinical experience at all over these 10 years because things happened. So I thought hers was actually a very interesting case in that I thought they were going to ask for a lot of proof. But basically, all she had to provide to them was, in these 10 years, did you try and stay clinically oriented? So she did attend medical conferences, even though she couldn't get registration in her own country. She did try and do, seminars and little courses to show that she was trying to stay in touch with medicine. And it wasn't until then, she got GMC registration, and it took a little bit longer. But really, GMC is very nice. I would put it like that. Like, they will listen to what you have. Just don't lie to them. Obvious thing. Provide them whatever they ask for. If they say we need this paper, give them that paper. Don't give them some other paper because.
And that's what happens to a lot of people.
Yeah.
They overthink that, oh, I have this gap. I have to probably give this paper, give this paper because I heard, and this I heard thing is a lot. So I heard
Right.
that doctor had to give this paper signed by this consultant. I heard that doctor had to do this, so I'll probably have to do this. And they send these documents to GMC, and GMC's like, we didn't even ask for this.
Yeah.
Now that you have sent this to us, please explain.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that's what happens to a lot of doctors. Like, they apply and they think that my case would be exactly the similar as the other one because, okay, he was also taking preparation for PG entrance exam and I was also taking PG entrance exam. So I'll just send the same exact documents. That does not happen. So you follow what the guidance of GMC is. GMC has a clear guidance on, like, if you have a clinical gap, you have to just say they have a drop-down list. You can choose what you were doing. You can just choose vacation and traveling because after I finished my medical school, before I joined internship, there was a considerable amount of gap because in my country, we had to apply for provisional registration and, the bureaucracy of the whole thing takes time. So
Right.
It took me 3 or 4 months that basically I wasn't doing anything. I'm a medical graduate. I'm just waiting to join my internship back home country. That 4 months, I chose vacation and traveling in my GMC registration application. After my internship is done, I took PLAB exams. So that also I was doing nothing. I took PLAB exams. I came to the UK. I roamed around a few months and everything. So I divided the time that way, that this date was my PLAB 2 exam. After PLAB 2 to today, I'm doing nothing. I was just roaming around in UK and applying for jobs and all the other stuff. So there is an option for explaining what you were doing. And a lot of people think that if I say that I didn't do anything, I'll not get GMC registration. That's not true at all. The most of the people who gets asked a lot of things and they fail to provide the documents, even then GMC gives them the option, if you can't provide these documents in this way, then can you provide the documents, fax it to us? Can you mail it to us? Can you sign it, get by letterhead if your consultant doesn't have an official email? So there are a lot of diversified options GMC gives you. You have to only follow that to explain your gaps.
And worst case scenario, if they still refuse full registration and they give you provisional registration, all you have to do is apply for their internship and you would get full registration. I know that's not ideal because then you have to do 2 years before you can go into whatever training. But if you still really wanted to come to the UK, it wouldn't be that they would stop you.
So they denied your registration application. So if they deny your registration application, that means you applied for full registration. So they denied it. You can still apply for provisional one because you passed the PLAB exams.
Yeah.
So you still can apply for registration. After the just fulfill all the other criteria. After a year, you can apply for full registration. So it's not a waste.
Got it, got it, got it. I think what you explained about the gaps will really help us because it's always hearsay, whatever people are saying. But does this gap, I mean, these travel gaps and all these, do they decrease the chances of people taking, getting the jobs or internship less than the freshly graduates who do not have any gap and have like a good history?
I'm gonna go back to my friend with the 10-year gap, who is currently a GP trainee. When they started out, they took an FY2 non-training level because they didn't have any experience for these 10 years. So they took a very, very basic job, but they learned everything that they needed to do for their competencies. They worked very, very hard. I have to hand it to them. With someone that type of a gap, it's very difficult, especially to get back into the system. But it's not a matter of can you do it if someone is stopping you. It's a matter of can you do it if you want to do it. And
Right.
it's just down to that. Everyone will have some sort of gap. It's impossible to come to the UK and not have some gap somewhere.
Because you have to come to the UK to take PLAB too.
Yeah, there's you have that gap right there alone. Or even if you're taking IELTS and OET, or just like what Ibrahim was saying, just waiting for his registration to happen. That's not even in his hands. There's going to be a gap because of that. So it's just down to, do you think you can do it? If you have this gap, all you have to do is try and make up for this gap. It may take a little bit longer for you to get to that destination, but if you just know how to go about doing it and you work towards it, it can be done.
But obviously, I mean, just to be very like frank about it, if a person has some publication done, works in an acute hospital, currently is a resident somewhere, and have all the things under their belt, and some person who have not worked in the last 10 years, they don't hold similar, do they?
No, but at the same time, it would also be down to what level of job they would be
Exactly.
applying for.
So if the applicants that you are applying with are like super studded and superstars, obviously you will be not in the same par with them. But at the same time, just because you are in the not same par, that doesn't mean that you'll never get a job. It's not like that.
Okay, okay.
And like this will clear a lot of doubts. But now coming to the PLAB proper exam, what is the right time to start the exam and how much time it will take to study? And is it good to start in med school, like during this 4 or 5, 6 years during MBBS? Is it good to start preparation, or should we do after completing the med school?